The text message came just as I was boarding my flight to Dad's funeral. "Don't bother coming. You're not welcome here." My brother Richard's words hit me like a physical blow, making me stumble as I reached for my seat. The elderly woman next to me asked if I was okay. I wasn't. I'm Eloise, and this wasn't the first time my family had shut me out. But being banned from my own father's funeral? That was a new low, even for them. "Miss, you need to turn off your phone now," the flight attendant said, hovering over me. I nodded numbly, but not before another message popped up from my sister Milena. "I'm so sorry, Elle. Richard and Derek made the decision. I tried to stop them." 3 years earlier, they'd done the same thing with Mom's funeral. I'd shown up anyway, ignoring their protests. The memory of that day still burns. "How dare you show your face here?" Richard had grabbed my arm in the church parking lot, his fingers digging into my flesh. "You abandoned the family when Mom needed you most." "I didn't abandon anyone," I'd shot back, yanking free. "I just chose a different path. Mom supported my decision." Derek had stepped between us, always playing peacekeeper. "This isn't the time or place. Mom wouldn't want this. Mom wouldn't want a lot of things." Richard had sneered, like her only daughter choosing her precious career over family. The plane took off, and I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. My phone burned in my pocket, filled with unanswered messages from Luke, my business partner, asking if I needed him to come with me. I'd told him no. This was something I had to face alone. But now I wouldn't be facing anything at all. The woman beside me offered a tissue. "Family troubles, dear?" I let out a bitter laugh. "You could say that. My brothers just banned me from our father's funeral." Her eyes widened. "Good Lord, whatever for?" "Because I dared to dream bigger than our family business." I wiped my eyes. I wanted to build something of my own instead of being stuck in Dad's shadow forever. "And that was enough for them too?" "They blame me for Mom's death," I said quietly. "She had cancer. They think if I'd stayed home instead of moving to New York to start my company, she might have lived longer, as if my presence could have somehow stopped stage 4 pancreatic cancer." The plane reached cruising altitude, and the drink cart started making its rounds. I ordered a whiskey, something I rarely did. My phone vibrated again the moment I turned it back on after landing. This time, it was Derek. "Elle, please understand," his message read. "Dad's last weeks were hard. He kept asking why you weren't there." I typed back furiously. "Maybe because none of you told me he was sick?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "We tried calling your office." Bullshit. My hands were shaking. "You have my cell number. You have my email. You know where I live. Don't pretend this was anything but deliberate." Another message from Milena. "They're starting the service in an hour. I can live stream it to you if you want." I stared at her message for a long time before responding. "No, they wanted me out. I'm out. But tell Richard something for me." "What?" "Tell him Dad's company won't be the only Howard legacy anymore. I'm going to build something so big, so successful, that our family name will be known for my achievements, not just Dad's." "Elle, don't do anything rash." I turned off my phone and headed to the rental car counter. I wouldn't be attending Dad's funeral, but I had somewhere else to be. My company was about to sign our biggest deal yet, and I'd be damned if I'd let my family's rejection derail that. As I drove away from the airport, Mom's last words to me echoed in my head. "Don't let them clip your wings, sweetheart. Fly as high as you can." Well, Mom, I thought, gripping the steering wheel tighter, I'm about to soar so high they'll never be able to reach me. And when they inevitably come crashing down, because with Richard and Derek's management style, they will, I'll be watching from above. Let them ban me from funerals. Let them blame me for things beyond my control. I'll show them what real power looks like, and when the time comes, They'll be the ones begging for my help. I pulled onto the highway, leaving my father's funeral behind. Ahead of me lay New York, my company, and my revenge. It would be served cold, calculated, and completely within the bounds of business law. After all, I am my father's daughter. You're insane, Eloise, Luke said, staring at the acquisition papers on my desk. Absolutely insane, and I love it. 5 years had passed since Dad's funeral. I'd poured every ounce of pain and rejection into building Howard Enterprises, and it had paid off spectacularly. Today, we were finalizing our 10th major acquisition. Sign here. I pushed the papers toward him. And our little startup officially becomes a corporate giant. Luke's pen hovered over the dotted line. You know this makes us direct competitors with your family's company, right? That's the point. I smiled, remembering Richard's text from 5 years ago. Sometimes karma needs a little push. The intercom buzzed. Miss Howard, your friend Willow is here. Send her in. Willow burst through the door, waving her phone. Have you seen the business news? Your brother Derek just gave the most desperate interview I've ever witnessed. Pull it up on the screen, Luke said, pointing to our conference display. Derek's face filled the wall, looking older and more haggard than I remembered. The ticker below read, Howard & Sons Manufacturing faces financial crisis. We're adapting to market changes, Derek was saying, his voice strained. Our father built this company on traditional values, and we're committed to maintaining his vision. That's corporate speak for we're drowning, Luke muttered. I leaned back in my chair, watching my brother squirm under the interviewer's questions about declining profits and market share. Sources say you've lost 40% of your value in the last quarter alone. The interviewer pressed. How do you respond? Derek loosened his tie. We're exploring various options to... My phone rang. Milena's name flashed on the screen. Should I take it? I asked Willow. She nodded. Time to face the music. Eloise? Milena's voice cracked. We need your help. Funny, I thought I wasn't part of the family anymore. Please, just listen. Richard's too proud to call, but we're in trouble. Real trouble. I put the phone on speaker. I'm watching Derek's interview right now. Doesn't look good. It's worse than it looks. We're 3 months from bankruptcy unless something changes. The bank's threatening to call in our loans. Luke raised an eyebrow at me. We both knew this was coming. And what exactly do you expect me to do about it? I kept my voice neutral. You've built an amazing company, Elle. Everyone in the industry knows it. We need your expertise, your connections. Please. I muted the phone. What do you think? I asked Luke and Willow. It's what you've been waiting for, Willow said. The perfect revenge served on a silver platter. Luke nodded. But be careful. Family businesses are messy. I unmuted the call. I'll think about it, but I have conditions. Anything, Milena said quickly. I want a meeting, all of us, including Richard. Silence on the line. Milena? He won't like it. Then I guess you'll have to convince him, because I won't help unless he's there, acknowledging that he needs me. I'll make it happen, she promised. Thank you, Elle. After hanging up, I walked to the window, looking out over the Manhattan skyline. 5 years ago, they wouldn't let me say goodbye to Dad. Now they're begging for my help. Are you really going to help them? Willow asked. Oh, I'm going to do more than help them. I turned back to my friends. I'm going to take over, Luke whistled. Richard will never agree to that. He won't have a choice. They're drowning, and I'm their only lifeline. I picked up the acquisition papers we'd just signed. Besides, I didn't build all this just to play nice. My phone buzzed with a text from Milena. Meeting set for Friday. Richard agreed. Please don't make us regret this. I showed the message to Luke and Willow. Ready to face your demons? Willow asked. More than ready. I sat back at my desk, pulling up Howard and Sons financial records. Dad always said business isn't personal, but he was wrong. Sometimes it's very personal. Luke gathered his things. Want me there on Friday? No, this is family business. I smiled. For now. After they left, I stayed late, studying every detail of my family's company's decline. Each poor decision, every missed opportunity, all the outdated policies Richard had clung to. They told a story of stubborn pride and incompetence. Friday couldn't come soon enough. I had waited 5 years for this moment, building my empire piece by piece, preparing for the day they'd have no choice but to acknowledge my success. Don't let them clip your wings, Mom had said. Well, Mom, I thought, not only did I keep my wings, I learned to soar, and now I'm coming home to roost. Walking into Howard and Sons felt like stepping back in time. The same faded carpets, the same dusty photographs of Dad with various clients, even the same ancient coffee machine sputtering in the corner. Only now, everything carried an air of decay. Sandra, Dad's old secretary, did a double take when I walked in. Eloise, is that really you? Hi, Sandra, I smiled, noting the new wrinkles around her eyes. Still keeping this place running? Trying to. She lowered her voice. Your brothers are waiting in the conference room, all of them. I straightened my blazer. How bad is it really, Sandra? Bad enough that Richard's here on a Friday instead of his golf club. That said everything. The conference room fell silent when I walked in. Richard sat at Dad's old seat, of course. Derek slouched beside him, while Milena stood by the window, wringing her hands. Well, well, Richard said, not standing. Look who finally graces us with her presence. Nice to see you too, Richard. Love what you've done with the place. Very vintage. Derek cleared his throat. Can we skip the hostilities? We're here to talk business. Are we? I set my briefcase on the table. Because last time I tried to talk business with this family, I was told to stay in my lane and never come back. That was different, Richard snapped. Dad was dead, I cut in. Yes, he was, and I wasn't allowed to say goodbye. Funny how you want my help now. Milena stepped forward. Elle, please, we're trying. I pulled out my laptop. Show me the books. Derek slid a folder across the table. I flipped through pages of red ink and declining numbers, each sheet telling a story of mismanagement and stubborn adherence to outdated methods. Jesus, I muttered. When was the last time you updated your production line? Dad's methods worked fine, Richard defended. Dad's methods worked 20 years ago. The world's changed. I walked to the wall of photographs, stopping at one of Dad in front of the factory. You know what he told me once? The biggest mistake a businessman can make is thinking tomorrow will look like yesterday. Don't you dare quote Dad to me. Richard stood up. You weren't here because you pushed me out. I spun to face him. I wanted to modernize, to expand. You wanted to play king of the castle in Dad's chair. Stop it, both of you. Milena slammed her hand on the table. This isn't helping. I took a deep breath. You're right. Let's talk solutions. I can help, but I have conditions. Here we go, Richard muttered. First, I want full control. No interference, no committees, no, but Dad would have arguments. Derek leaned forward. For how long? Until the company's profitable again. Could be 6 months, could be 2 years. Absolutely not. Richard stood up. I won't hand over Dad's legacy to... To what, Richard? Your more successful sister? The one who built a company worth 10 times this one in 5 years? Milena touched Richard's arm. We don't have a choice. The bank's meeting is next week. I continued. Second condition, I merge this company with mine. The room exploded. You can't. That's ridiculous. Listen. I raised my voice. You need my resources, my connections, my modern infrastructure. A merger is the fastest way to save this company. Richard's face turned red. This is a takeover, not help. Call it whatever you want. But without me, this company dies. Dad's legacy dies. Your choice. Derek rubbed his face. Can we have time to discuss this? You have until Monday. After that, I'm busy with my own acquisitions. I packed up my laptop, then paused at the door. Oh, and Richard, that private meeting you're planning with United Manufacturing tomorrow? Cancel it. They're filing for bankruptcy next week. His jaw dropped. How did you? I know everything happening in this industry. That's why you need me. I smiled. I'll wait for your call. Walking out, I stopped at Dad's old office. Through the glass, I could see Richard had kept it exactly the same. Same desk, same chair, same everything. But Dad's spirit of innovation, his drive to adapt and grow, that was long gone. Sandra appeared beside me. He'd be proud of you, you know. Your father. Would he? He always said you were the one most like him. Richard got his stubbornness, Derek his charm. But you? She squeezed my arm. You got his vision. I touched the glass one last time, then headed for the elevator. Behind me, I could hear my siblings arguing in the conference room. They had until Monday to swallow their pride, but I already knew what they'd choose. Pride doesn't pay the bills, and the banks don't care about family legacies. They'd call, and when they did, I'd be ready to remake this company in my image, just like I'd always dreamed. They called Sunday night, not Monday. Richard's voice was strained when he said, "We accept your terms." Now, a week later, I sat in Dad's old office, my office, reviewing files when Milena burst in without knocking. You need to see this. She dropped a stack of papers on my desk. Bank statements, invoices, transfer records, all showing irregular patterns. Where did you find these? I flipped through the documents, my stomach tightening. Hidden in Richard's private files. I've been helping with the handover paperwork and... She swallowed hard. Someone's been cooking the books. I grabbed my phone to call Luke. Get down here, now! While waiting, I dug deeper into the records. Money had been systematically siphoned off through a maze of fake vendors and inflated invoices. This wasn't just mismanagement. This was fraud. Luke arrived 20 minutes later, taking one look at my face before closing the door. What's wrong? Show him, I told Milena. As Luke reviewed the documents, Derek walked in. The production team's ready for your inspection. What's going on? Close the door, I ordered, and call Richard, family meeting, now. He's at the club. Get him here. An hour later, we all sat around the conference table, the damning documents spread before us. Richard's face had turned an interesting shade of purple as Luke explained what we'd found. These transactions, Luke pointed to a spreadsheet, show systematic theft over the past 3 years, nearly $2 million funneled through shell companies. That's impossible, Richard sputtered. I review all major transactions. Exactly, I said. You review them. So either you're incompetent or you're involved. Derek jumped up. Are you accusing our brother of stealing? I'm stating facts. Money disappeared. Richard had oversight. Do the math. Milena touched Richard's arm. Tell them it's not true. Richard's silence filled the room like poison gas. Holy shit, Derek whispered. Rich. It wasn't stealing, Richard finally said. I was investing in new opportunities. In your personal account? I slammed my hand on the table. That's called embezzlement, brother dear. You don't understand. After Dad died, we were struggling. I needed capital for side ventures to keep us afloat. To keep your golf membership afloat, you mean? I pulled up his personal bank statements. Country club dues, vacation homes, private school for your kids, all while the company bled out. Luke cleared his throat. As your legal counsel, I should mention this is criminal behavior. You wouldn't, Richard leaned forward. I'm your brother. Watch me. I stood up. You have 2 choices. Either resign immediately, surrender all company shares, and repay every penny, or I call the police. You can't do this, Richard's face contorted. This is my company. Not anymore. I nodded to Luke, who slid a document across the table. Resignation papers. Sign them. Derek put his head in his hands. Dad would be ashamed. Dad's dead, Richard snapped, and she's destroying everything he built. No, Milena's voice was quiet but firm. You did that yourself. Richard looked around the table, finding no allies. With shaking hands, he picked up the pen. I want your resignation letter on my desk tomorrow, I said as he signed. Cite personal reasons. Keep it clean, and we'll keep this quiet. For Dad's sake. After Richard stormed out, Derek turned to me. What now? Now? I pulled out my laptop. We rebuild, starting with a full audit and restructuring. I found something else, Milena said softly. In the old files, Dad's personal letters. She handed me a yellowed envelope. Inside was a letter dated just before his death. Dear Eloise, it began. If you're reading this, I failed to fix things between you and your siblings. I was wrong to let them push you away. Your vision for the company was right. I see that now. I hope someday you'll come back and show them a better way. Love, Dad. My hands trembled. When did you find this? This morning. Richard never sent it. Luke touched my shoulder. You okay? I folded the letter carefully. Call the executive team. I want everyone here in an hour. It's time to announce some changes. As they filed out, I walked to the window, looking out at the factory floor below. Workers moved between machines, same as they had in Dad's day. But soon everything would change. My phone buzzed, a text from Willow. Heard about Richard. You okay? I typed back. Better than okay. Finally got what I wanted. Revenge? I thought about Dad's letter, about Richard's downfall, about the company's future. No, I replied, justice, and a chance to make things right. The factory whistle blew, signaling shift change, time to face the staff and begin the new era of Howard Enterprises. Dad's legacy wasn't dead. It was just getting started. You're firing half the management team? Derek paced my office, running his hands through his hair. They've been here for decades. I'm not firing them, I corrected, reviewing the reorganization plans. I'm offering them new positions or early retirement packages. The old hierarchy doesn't work anymore. 3 months had passed since Richard's resignation. The company was undergoing massive changes, and not everyone was happy about it. My phone buzzed. Another angry email from the old guard. These dinosaurs are fighting me at every turn. They're scared, Milena said from her new desk in the corner. I'd promoted her to Chief Operations Officer, much to everyone's surprise. Turned out she had a natural talent for logistics. They should be, I muttered, then pressed the intercom. Sandra, is everyone here for the meeting? Yes, waiting in the main conference room. And Richard's here. I sat up straight. What? He's demanding to speak to the board. Derek and Milena exchanged worried looks. Let him try. I grabbed my presentation materials. The board's about to vote on my modernization plan anyway. Perfect timing. The conference room fell silent as we entered. Richard stood at the far end, wearing a rumpled suit that had seen better days. The board members sat uncomfortably between us, like children caught between fighting parents. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, but Richard cut me off. Before my sister continues dismantling our father's legacy, he announced, I have evidence of her corporate espionage. Several board members gasped. I kept my face neutral. Really, Richard? That's your play? He slapped a folder on the table. She's been stealing our clients, undermining our contracts, all while pretending to help. Those are our internal documents, Derek said, scanning the papers. How did you get these? Friends in accounting, Richard smirked. Not everyone supports this hostile takeover. I walked calmly to the presentation screen and pulled up a spreadsheet. You mean these contracts? The ones that were already failing under your leadership? I highlighted several rows. The ones where you were overcharging clients by 40% to cover your personal expenses? Richard's smirk faltered. Or perhaps, I continued, you'd like to explain to the board why our biggest client switched to my company 6 months ago? Here's their complaint file. Dozens of quality control issues, delayed shipments, inflated invoices. You're destroying everything Dad built, Richard shouted. No, I'm saving it. I slammed my hands on the table. Look around. The factory floor hasn't been updated in 20 years. Our competitors are using AI and automation while we're still doing manual inventory. Half our workforce is approaching retirement with no succession plan. Milena stepped forward. I have the employee satisfaction surveys from last month. She distributed papers to the board. 85% support Eloise's changes. Morale is up, efficiency is up, and for the first time in 5 years, we're actually hiring instead of laying people off. The numbers don't lie, I pointed to the screen. Third quarter projections show a 60% increase in productivity. We've secured 3 major contracts since implementing the new systems. One of the board members cleared his throat. These results are impressive, but change at this pace is risky. You know what's riskier? Derek surprised everyone by speaking up. Staying the same while the world moves forward. I watched my brother nearly bankrupt us trying to preserve the past. I won't make that mistake again. Richard lunged for the presentation remote. Let me show you what she's really doing. Security, I called out. 2 guards appeared at the door. Please escort my brother out. He's no longer authorized to be on premises. As they led him away, he shouted, This isn't over, Eloise. Actually, it is. I turned to the board. Now, shall we vote on the modernization plan? The vote passed unanimously. Later that evening, I found Milena in Dad's old archive room, sorting through files. Found something interesting, she said, holding up a dusty blueprint. Dad's original designs for the factory included an automated assembly line. He never implemented it because the old guard threatened to quit. I studied the yellowed paper. He was ahead of his time. Like father, like daughter. She smiled. Though I doubt he would have handled Richard quite so ruthlessly. Speaking of Richard, Derek appeared in the doorway. Just heard from his wife. He's checking into rehab. Apparently, he's been struggling since the resignation. A twinge of guilt hit me. Get him the best care. Company's health insurance still covers him. Already done. Derek hesitated. You know, I didn't see it before, but you really are Dad's daughter. He would have been proud of today. I touched Dad's blueprint gently. We're not done yet. Tomorrow we start phase 2, retooling the production line. The old guard will hate that, Milena laughed. Good thing I'm not here to be liked. I rolled up the blueprint. I'm here to build something that lasts. Outside, the factory lights blazed against the darkening sky, illuminating the new Howard Enterprises logo. Change was coming, whether they liked it or not. Someone's sabotaging the new equipment. Luke dropped a security report on my desk. 3rd incident this month. I rubbed my temples, staring at the photos of damaged machinery. 6 months into the modernization, and we'd hit a wall of resistance I hadn't expected. Production's down 30%, Milena added, pulling up the latest numbers. The workers are scared. Someone's spreading rumors that the automation will replace them all. My phone buzzed. Derek calling from the factory floor. You need to get down here, now. The manufacturing floor was chaos. Workers clustered in groups. Machinery sat idle, and in the center of it all stood Marcus, our longest-serving foreman, holding what looked like internal memos. These documents prove it, he shouted as I approached. She's planning to fire everyone over 50. Replace us with machines and kids fresh out of college. Those documents are fake, I said loudly, making heads turn. Where did you get them? Marcus's face reddened. Found them in the break room. Really? Because they have Richard's old letterhead. I stepped closer. When did my brother contact you, Marcus? The crowd murmured. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Everyone in the conference room, I announced. Now, 10 minutes later, I faced my workforce. Decades of experience sat before me, generations of families who'd built their lives around this company. Their fear was real, even if the documents weren't. Let me be clear, I began. No one is getting fired. The automation isn't replacing you, it's supporting you. That's not what we heard, someone called out. I know there are rumors. I know change is scary. But look at these. I projected photos on the screen. This is what our competitors' factories look like. This is what we're up against. The images showed sleek, modern facilities. Our main competitor had tripled their output last quarter. But here's what they don't have. I switched to our employee records. 250 years of combined experience in this room. Knowledge that no machine can replace. Derek stepped forward. The automation handles the dangerous, repetitive tasks. You'll be trained for specialized roles. Higher pay, better conditions. Prove it, Marcus challenged. I pulled up the new salary structure. Average wage increase of 40% after training, full benefits, college tuition support for your kids, and a profit-sharing program. The room grew quiet. But first, I continued, I need to know who's been sabotaging our equipment. Because every broken machine costs jobs. Every delayed order pushes us closer to what Richard almost achieved, bankruptcy. Milena distributed new contracts. These guarantee your positions through the transition and beyond, but we need your help identifying the saboteur. A young worker stood up. It's Marcus. He's been meeting with Mr. Richard at Joey's bar every week. I saw them. Marcus lunged for the worker, but security intercepted him. Is this true? I asked. Richard said you'd destroy everything. Marcus spat. Said we needed to stop you before. Before what? Before I could save the company? I walked to him. You've worked here 30 years, Marcus. Did I ever lie to you? He looked away. Check his locker, someone called out. Security found tools matching the damage patterns and more fake documents. I'm not pressing charges, I told Marcus as security led him out. But you're done here, and tell my brother if he tries to interfere again, our agreement about keeping his embezzlement quiet is void. After the drama, I addressed the remaining workers. Anyone else want to leave? Doors open. But if you stay, I need your full commitment. We do this together, or not at all. No one moved. Good. I pointed to the new equipment. Training starts tomorrow. Show me what you can do with the right tools. Later, in my office, Luke reviewed the incident reports. Think Richard will back off now? He has to. He's broke, in rehab, and one phone call away from criminal charges. I signed Marcus's termination papers. But I'm more worried about the old guard's loyalty. Today might have fixed that, Derek said. Nothing builds trust like showing your cards openly. Milena entered with the afternoon production numbers. Teams are already back at work. And look, efficiency's up 15% since this morning. Sometimes you need a crisis to clear the air, Luke observed. My phone buzzed. A text from Richard's wife. He's doing better. Asked about the company today. Said maybe you were right about the changes. Speaking of changes, Derek pointed out the window. The factory floor had transformed. Workers who'd been clustered in angry groups that morning were now gathered around the new machines, learning, asking questions. The fear was giving way to curiosity. Dad used to say, Milena smiled, that the hardest part of leadership is bringing people along with you. I watched my father's workforce embrace the future he'd once dreamed of. We're not just bringing them along, we're bringing them up. The factory hummed with new energy, but something still felt off, like we were missing a piece of the puzzle. I just hoped we'd find it before the next crisis hit. The annual shareholders meeting was in full swing when Richard walked in. 8 months sober looked good on him. Clear eyes, pressed suit, steady hands. The room fell silent as he made his way to the front. "Please continue, Eloise," he said quietly, taking a seat in the back row. I gripped the podium tighter. As I was saying, our third quarter results exceeded all projections. The modernization program is a lie, a voice shouted from the crowd. Thomas, our former head of accounting, stood up. "I have proof that these numbers are manipulated." "Here we go again." "Thomas," I sighed, "we've been through this. The audit committee. The audit committee is in your pocket." He turned to the shareholders. "Just like her brother was cooking the books, she's inflating the success of her precious automation program." Richard stood up. "That's not true." Everyone turned to stare at him. "The numbers are real," he continued. "I've seen the raw data, the factory output, the client contracts." He walked to the front. "My sister isn't destroying our father's legacy. She's building on it." Thomas sputtered. "But you said, at the club, you told us to fight her changes." "I was wrong." Richard faced the crowd. "I was bitter, drunk, and wrong. This company was dying under my leadership. Eloise saved it." I felt tears threatening but forced them back. "Richard, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." He pulled out a folder. "I came here today to return these, my remaining shares in the company. They should go to someone who knows what to do with them." Thomas wasn't finished. "You're all blind." She pushed out loyal employees, brought in her fancy consultants. "You mean the loyal employees who were sabotaging equipment?" Milena stood up. "Or the ones taking kickbacks from suppliers." Derek joined in. "The company's profit margin has doubled. Employee satisfaction is at an all-time high. Those are facts, Thomas, not manipulation." "The truth is," Richard addressed the shareholders, "I nearly destroyed everything our father built because I was too proud to admit the world had changed. My sister had the vision I lacked." Thomas stormed toward the podium. "This is all a setup." Security moved to intercept him, but Richard got there first, blocking his path. "Enough, Thomas. It's over." Richard's voice was firm. "Go home before you embarrass yourself further." As security escorted Thomas out, I turned to the shareholders. "Any other questions about the numbers?" The room remained silent. "Then let's vote on the expansion proposal." The vote was unanimous in favor. As people filed out, Richard lingered. "That couldn't have been easy," I said. "Sobriety has a way of clearing your vision." He smiled sadly. "I found Dad's old journals during rehab. He wrote about you, you know. Said you reminded him of himself at your age. Always pushing boundaries, seeing possibilities others missed." "Richard, let me finish. I was wrong about everything. The company, Dad's legacy, you." He handed me the folder with his shares. "These belong to you now. Use them better than I did." Derek and Milena joined us. For the first time in years, all four Howard siblings stood together without tension. "I have a proposal," I said. "The expansion plans include a new research and development division. We need someone to run it, someone who knows the old systems but isn't afraid to experiment." Richard's eyes widened. "Are you offering a chance to be part of the future instead of clinging to the past? Interested? You'd trust me after everything?" "Trust is earned," Derek said, "like forgiveness." Milena hugged Richard. "Welcome back, brother." Later that evening, we gathered in Dad's old office, now a modern conference room, but with his photos still on the walls. "Remember when we were kids," Milena said, "and Dad would let us play office in here?" You always wanted to be the boss. Derek laughed. Look how that turned out, Richard added, but without bitterness. I touched Dad's picture. He'd be proud of us. All of us. Even me? Richard asked quietly. Especially you, I said. It takes courage to admit you're wrong, to change. My phone buzzed. Luke with the final shareholder tallies. Support for the expansion was even higher than expected. So, what's next? Derek asked. I smiled. Now we build something extraordinary. Together. The setting sun streamed through the windows, casting long shadows across the office. Outside, the factory hummed with new life, old and new, working in harmony. To Dad, Richard raised his water glass, and to the future. We clinked glasses, four siblings united again, stronger for having been broken. The company wasn't just surviving anymore, it was thriving. And so were we. Ready for this? Luke asked, straightening my blazer as cameras set up in the factory's main hall. Born ready. I checked my notes one last time. The Wall Street Journal reporter waited patiently while her photographer adjusted lighting. Today was more than just another press interview. Today we unveiled the complete transformation of Howard Enterprises, with all four siblings presenting together for the first time. Richard approached, tablet in hand. R&D numbers just came in. The new sustainable manufacturing process is exceeding expectations. Of course it is, Derek called from the prototype display. It's your design. The factory floor behind us hummed with activity. Workers moved confidently between state-of-the-art machines, many of them the same employees who'd once resisted change. Now they were leading training sessions for our newest hires. Ms. Howard, the reporter began, your family company has become the industry leader in sustainable manufacturing. What sparked this transformation? Actually, I gestured to my siblings, this is a family story more than a business one. Milena joined us, bringing coffee. Tell her about Dad's blueprint. Our father had a vision, I explained, of a factory that balanced tradition with innovation. We found his original designs in the archives, automated systems, sustainable practices, everything we've implemented now. He was decades ahead of his time. But you faced significant resistance, the reporter noted, including from within your own family. Richard stepped forward. I was the biggest obstacle. Fear of change nearly destroyed us, but sometimes the best way to honor a legacy is to build upon it, not preserve it in amber. The real story, Derek added, is how this company brought our family back together. Sandra appeared with an urgent message. The government contract team is here early. I'll handle it, Milena said, ever the operations master. The reporter watched her go. Your executive team is unusually diverse. Talent doesn't follow traditional patterns, I replied. Neither should leadership. A commotion near the main entrance drew our attention. A group of workers was gathering, phones raised. What's happening? I asked. Richard checked his tablet and broke into a grin. Stock just hit an all-time high. The sustainable manufacturing announcement leaked. The reporter's photographer captured the spontaneous celebration as it spread across the factory floor. Decades-long employees hugged recent hires. The profit-sharing program meant everyone was celebrating. Remember when they were ready to riot over the changes? Derek murmured. Now look, Richard said proudly. They're leading the industry in adaptation rates. Luke appeared with more news. Tokyo office just called. They want to license our sustainable manufacturing process. Tell them to wait for the official announcement, I said, then turned back to the reporter. Where were we? I was about to ask about your father. Do you think he'd recognize the company today? I looked around at our transformed factory, at Richard explaining new processes to veteran workers, at Derek managing global logistics on his tablet, at Milena expertly handling government contracts. He'd recognize what matters, I said, family, innovation, progress. The rest is just details. The reporter's final question caught me off guard. Any regrets about how it all played out? I thought about the painful years of exile, Richard's breakdown and recovery, the fights and reconciliation, the sabotage and triumph. The path wasn't straight, I admitted, but every step led here. After the interview, my siblings and I gathered in the break room, away from the cameras. Dad's birthday is tomorrow, Milena said softly. Richard pulled out an old photo. Dad in front of the original factory. First time in years we can visit him together. He'd love what we've built, Derek said. Not just the business, this, us. My phone buzzed. Willow sending congratulations on the stock price. But another message followed. Thomas had been hired by our main competitor. Problem? Luke asked, noting my expression. Nothing we can't handle. I showed my siblings the message. Together. Richard laughed. Let him try. We're not the same company he knew. We're not the same family either, Milena added. Through the break room window, I watched our father's factory, now our factory, buzzing with renewed purpose. Workers who'd once feared automation now led innovation teams. Family members who'd once fought now built something greater than our individual ambitions. To Dad, Richard raised his coffee cup, who taught us that the greatest legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you build forward. We finished together, an old family saying taking on new meaning. Outside, the afternoon sun caught the new Howard Enterprises logo, making it shine like a beacon. Below it, Dad's original motto remained, Building Tomorrow Today. We'd done exactly that, not just with machines and processes, but with trust, forgiveness, and family bonds stronger than steel. The future was bright, and we were ready for it. Together. 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 Together.